For joining us this hour. So we really count on local news organizations a lot on this show. We, of course, are mostly covering national news and national politics, particularly in this historic moment where we're basically deciding as a country whether or not we are staying a democracy or not. We are a national show. This is a national news network. We cover stories of national importance. But stories of national importance and stories of national political importance don't always happen in the capital of the nation. They don't always happen in D.C. In fact, they most often do not happen in D.C. I would say, for example, that it is a huge story of national political import that the Trump administration is now having federal agents arrest judges. But when that happened this past week, it wasn't something that happened in Washington. It was something that happened in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel newspaper was all over the story with in-depth reporting on what led up to the arrest and the allegations the Trump administration was making against the judge and the handling of her arrest and her standing in the community and her background and the horror with which her arrest was greeted in Wisconsin when protests erupted spontaneously, immediately at the Milwaukee County Courthouse where the judge had been arrested. And then there were more protests at the Milwaukee FBI field office. And then the next day there were yet more protests at the Milwaukee FBI field office. We saw local news stations like WISN 12 News, the ABC station in Milwaukee, and WTMJ4, the local NBC station in Milwaukee. They've just been all over those protests with their correspondents there and cameras there covering them in depth. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, the paper, was all over the big press conference that was held yesterday at the Milwaukee County Courthouse with local political leaders and Democratic state legislators and lots of clergy, lots of faith leaders, all speaking up to defend this judge who Trump had arrested. Today, the local Fox station in Milwaukee, Fox 6, is covering the legit, stunning development that this judge who was arrested, she has now added to her legal defense team the single most famous, most accomplished, most respected, very conservative lawyer in the whole country, the legendary Supreme Court litigator Paul Clement. Just a person without parallel to his legal reputation in conservative circles. He will be joining the defense team for the Wisconsin judge Hannah Duggan, who Trump had arrested. The local CBS station, CBS 58, today covering local Milwaukee residents who have cases that are pending in Judge Duggan's courtroom. People who are now basically left in limbo by what Trump has done in arresting their judge in their case. So it's been really good local coverage from all of these different local news outlets and more. And this is absolutely a story of national importance. This is a big, bright, neon red line that Donald Trump is crossing here, right? Using armed federal force against judges. But honestly, we would be up a creek trying to cover this story nationally without Milwaukee's local press showing us all how and leading the way and giving us the depth that we need to be able to cover that story. And so that's just one example. But we rely on local news every day. Here, for example, is NBC 25 in Macomb County, Michigan today, covering over the entire course of the day today the big contingent of protesters that started turning up hours early today so they would be in position when President Trump arrived in Warren, Michigan tonight to give his speech. We had good coverage, too, from the local Fox station from mid-Michigan now. Seeing that coverage, we've also been able to get in touch with some of the organizers of the protest against Trump today, who provided us with these photos showing us yet more sort of depth and texture about this protest against Trump today. It shows you more of the signs, lots of people wearing black, for example, as a sign of protest against President Trump's visit today. But we count on local news reports everywhere, every day. Here, another example. This is KARK in Little Rock, Arkansas, with good coverage on Arkansans who have been protesting this week on overpasses and on local interstates, with signs that say "Impeach Trump" and the American flag flown upside down in the symbol of distress in deep red Arkansas. Here's KTLA in Los Angeles today with very good coverage of the big protest that happened today in downtown Los Angeles by LA County union workers. KTLA reporting that while today's Los Angeles protest was big and disruptive in its own right, you see them blocking that intersection there. This protest today in Los Angeles is also being seen as just a preview of what is expected to be a much, much larger protest in Los Angeles on Thursday this week, on May Day, May 1st. When we're expecting more protests all over the country against Donald Trump. So in the middle of this moment in American history where we've got an attempted authoritarian takeover of the United States government and a lot of people in the United States fighting back against that, covering that, you have to know that, yes, some of that fight back happens in Washington, right? So some of it does. Tonight, for example, we've learned that Democrats in the U.S. Senate are going to be holding the floor all night long in protest of Trump's corruption and to spotlight the destruction of his first 100 days, but particularly looking at the way Trump has been using the presidency already to make himself money. We're going to be checking in on that all-night action in Washington tonight as Democrats hold the floor, we believe, overnight and into tomorrow. So there is some stuff happening in Washington most days. But most of the fight back against Trump hasn't been in Washington. It's been all around the country, including in red states, which, among other things, has been forcing a lot of Republican elected officials to face, to contend with just how unpopular Trump is and how much the country really widely disapproves of what he's doing, because those Republican elected officials do not want to go down with the ship when they look at what's happening to Trump's approval ratings, and particularly Trump's approval ratings on the issues. So we focus a lot on local news for all the obvious reasons. But tonight, I want to show you something that I think is very important from a local news station. And this is not about someone fighting back against Trump. It is actually not about politics at all. It is about the character of what Trump has done to the government and what Trump is doing to the country. It's about what he has agents of the federal government doing in the United States, the real-life consequences of this shambolic mess that he has made of the U.S. government in just this short amount of time that he has been back in office. So this is from KFOR, which is the NBC affiliate in Oklahoma City. They aired this report last night in their 10 p.m. local news. They told us today that they had such an overwhelming response from their viewers reacting in shock to this story. That they continue to work the story today. They featured it again tonight with updated reporting on their primetime broadcast at dinner time. So I'm going to show it to you. I mean, I know everybody in the national media is doing their 100 days of Trump reviews or whatever right now. Honestly, here's mine. For me, I think this local news report, this is kind of all you need to know about this president and his character and the character of his leadership and the government that he runs and what he is doing to this country. Just watch this.
New at 10, a family traumatized after armed federal agents busted into their home as they were sleeping and took almost everything they own. Problem is, they were not the people agents were supposed to be looking for.
News 4's Spencer Humphrey is here with their frightening ordeal. Spencer, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, get this. That family just moved here about 2 weeks ago from out of state, and this is how their life in Oklahoma got started. They say they told federal immigration agents they had the wrong people, but those agents kept treating them like criminals, even though they're all U.S. citizens.
Fear.
Because I did feel at times that I felt I was going to die.
So much fear.
I kept praying. I said, God, please let me live through this moment.
Humiliation.
I was a zero. I was nothing.
Pure disbelief.
I just couldn't understand, how is this happening to us?
All just for wanting a fresh start.
You come to Oklahoma and you get treated like this. For what?
This woman, who we're calling Marissa, and her 3 daughters came to Oklahoma from Maryland looking for a slower, more affordable pace of life. They rented this house in a nice, seemingly safe northwest Oklahoma City neighborhood. Her husband planned to join them this past weekend, but any semblance they had of comfort went out the window when 20 men armed to the teeth busted through it Thursday morning.
I don't know who they were. They had guns. It was dark. All the lights were off.
They were federal agents, Marissa says, with the U.S. Marshals, ICE, and the FBI.
And I kept asking them, like, who are you? What are you doing here? What's happening? And they said, we have a warrant for the house.
They ordered Marissa and her daughters outside into the rain before they could even get dressed.
They wanted me to change in front of all of them, in between all of them.
The thing is, the suspect names on that search warrant were not Marissa's or anyone in her family's. They were, however, names listed on mail still arriving at the house. Former residents, perhaps.
We just moved here from Maryland. We're citizens. That's what I kept saying. We're citizens.
She says they didn't care.
That we weren't criminals. That why were they treating us like criminals? We were here by ourselves. That we didn't do anything.
The agents ripped apart every square inch of the house, taking their phones, laptops, documents, and their life savings in cash as evidence.
Like, I have to feed my children. I'm gonna need gas money. I need to be able to get around. Like, how do you just leave me like this, like an abandoned dog?
And when they left, they told her something.
I know it was a little rough this morning. It was so denigrating. Like, you do all of this to a family, to women, your fellow citizens, and it was a little rough. You have literally traumatized me and my daughters for life.
This family has virtually nothing.
And I said, when are we gonna get our stuff back? He was like, it could be days or it could be months.
Nothing but questions.
Well, what if I would have been armed? What if you're breaking in? What am I supposed to think? My initial thought is we were being robbed. My daughter's female daughter's being kidnapped.
Nothing but likely lifelong trauma.
We have guns pointed at our faces. Can you just reprogram yourself and see us as humans, as women, a little bit of mercy, and care a little bit about your fellow human mate, about your fellow citizen, like fellow resident. We bleed too. We bleed just like anybody else bleeds. We were scared. You could see in our faces that we were terrified.
Marissa says the agents refused to leave any contact information or business cards. She believes the agents wore logos connected to ICE, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the FBI. Today, the U.S. Marshals Service says their team was not involved. We also reached out to the FBI asking about that agency's level of involvement. Last week, they told us they assisted in this case. Late this afternoon, they told us they were not on the scene. They told us to contact Homeland Security, so we did. A spokesperson told us they would look into it and get back with us. So far, we've heard nothing. As for the family's phones, electronics, and cash, they have no idea which agency has their belongings or how to get them back.
Local reporting from KFOR, the NBC affiliate in Oklahoma City. I have to tell you a couple things about this. First of all, we've put in our own request for comment to the U.S. Marshals Service, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the woman who this happened to, she says that the agents were wearing insignia from the U.S. Marshals Service, ICE, and the FBI. But also, and this is very interesting, the U.S. Marshals Service told KFOR that their agents were not involved. And the U.S. Marshals Service told us the same thing tonight. Their Office of Public Affairs told us that they contacted the U.S. Marshals team in Oklahoma. Quote, they were not involved in this incident. We had no one there. Okay, that leaves the FBI and Homeland Security. Now, the FBI initially told KFOR that they were assisting on this case. They were assisting Homeland Security, so call them. But then today, the FBI changed its mind in terms of its account of what involvement the agency had had, and they said actually FBI agents weren't there, weren't involved at all. Okay, I don't know how to explain that change, but that's the change. Homeland Security, meantime, isn't saying anything at all. Not to KFOR and not so far to us, although we live in hope. And you know, your mileage may vary on how much you care about whether or not these federal government agencies agree to give a statement to the press or a statement to the Rachel Maddow show, right, about the actions of our own government in a case like this. You may or may not care about whether or not they're talking to me, whether they're talking to us. But what if you're Marissa? What if you're the woman this happened to? No word about who these people were, forcing you and your daughters outside into the rain in your underwear at gunpoint, tearing apart every inch of your house, taking your phones and your electronics and cash from your house, just smashing the place up, taking all of your stuff, including your money, and then leaving. And then there's no one to call. No way to get anything back. Not even, as she said, not even a business card. These are U.S. citizens. And this kind of stuff, the Trump administration thinks they will never have to answer for any of this stuff because they think the American public doesn't care about how immigrants are treated or that the American public actually wants cruelty and abuse toward immigrants. And so if it's federal agents who are working on anything related to immigration, well, carte blanche, no one will care what they do. That has been, I think, their working assumption since they have been in power these 100 days. But you know what? For one, the polling and the protests say that the American people don't think that at all. Not at all. But also, what we are learning is that once the government is treating anyone this way, any supposed line there is, any supposed barrier there is that's based on citizenship or immigration status, that gets real blurry real quick. I mean, this woman and her daughters, these are citizens. U.S. citizens in Oklahoma City. And we keep seeing U.S. citizens turn up in stories that are ostensibly about immigration enforcement or something having to do with immigration. I mean, Trump's immigration agents have told at least 9 U.S. citizen lawyers, doctors, teachers that they had 1 week to get out of the country or else. U.S. citizens, where are they supposed to go? First, it was 2 U.S. citizen lawyers in Massachusetts that we learned about. Then next, we learned about a U.S. citizen doctor from Cromwell, Connecticut. A few days after that, we learned about a U.S. citizen lawyer in Utah. He got this letter saying, it's time for you to leave the United States. The federal government will find you. He's a U.S. citizen. The next day, we learned of a U.S. citizen lawyer in San Diego. Same threat. Then we learned about another U.S. citizen lawyer in Austin, Texas. The day after that, we got new reporting on a U.S. citizen lawyer in Houston, Texas. This guy is born in Connecticut. He's a lawyer working in Houston. The Trump administration comes to him and threatens him to get out of the country immediately or else. Where is he supposed to go? The day after that, we learned of another U.S. citizen lawyer in Los Angeles, told by the Trump administration to get out of the country immediately, with all the attendant threats. I mean, it just keeps happening. Here's another one reporting from Wisconsin Public Radio. Headline, the federal government will find you. Immigration officials wrongfully told a Fox Valley man to leave the United States. Department of Homeland Security told a retired college administrator to depart the United States immediately. The letter to this random retired college administrator and teacher, an American citizen born in Western Pennsylvania, tells him, quote, if you do not depart the United States immediately, you will be subject to potential law enforcement actions that will result in your removal from the United States. Do not attempt to remain in the United States. The federal government will find you. Please depart the United States immediately. Well, at least they said please in that one. Now, in some cases, reporters who have been following up on these bizarre cases where U.S. citizens are being told to get out of the country. In some cases, reporters following up on these cases have been told by the Trump administration that these threats were sent by mistake. But not in every instance and not to everybody who has received these threats. I mean, we've had Trump's immigration agents try to arrest Puerto Ricans in Newark and in Philadelphia. People from Puerto Rico who, by definition, are U.S. citizens by birth. But apparently the Trump administration has not been able to figure that out, so they've been arresting people anyway. In Arizona this month, Trump's immigration agents arrested a U.S. citizen in Arizona, held him for 10 days in an immigration prison even though he is a U.S. citizen. Leon County, Florida, a week and a half ago, they locked up another guy, U.S. citizen, initially would not let him go, even when his birth certificate showing his birth in the United States was handed over to the court. And now they have started sending U.S. citizen children out of the country, including one case Friday night in which the deeply conservative Trump-appointed judge in Louisiana who got the case said that he had a, quote, strong suspicion that the government just deported a U.S. citizen with no meaningful process. That judge, I got to tell you, in an extraordinary action, also himself personally tried to get the mother of that U.S. citizen child on the phone after Trump's immigration agents had flown her out of the country. The judge tried to get her on the phone himself so he personally could ask the mother whether or not what the Trump administration was saying about her and her child was true, since they offered him no proof at all, and he doesn't have to believe them when they offer no proof. They offered him no proof at all of what they were saying about this mother before flying that U.S. citizen out of the country without a single moment's appearance in court. And so the judge turned himself into a detective, trying to find the mother himself, to get her on the phone, to do some fact-finding, to figure out what had happened here, since nobody was before him in court, just the government saying stuff without proof.
The Baker and the Handyman's Sweet Connection. In a quaint village nestled in a picturesque valley, there stood a small house in the shape of a mushroom. This whimsical home belonged to a young boy named Jamie, barely out of high school, who had a passion for baking. Inside, his cozy kitchen was always filled with the sweet aroma of cakes, cookies, and all sorts of delightful treats. What made his creation special was that each of his cakes was shaped like tiny mushrooms, a nod to his quirky home. Jamie's baking became the talk of the town. From birthdays to celebrations, everyone in the village adored his sweets.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
Sable's Song, A Siren's Journey to Joy. Once upon a time, in a small, worn-out town in Middle America, there lived a little child named Sable. Worn into poverty, Sable's body was frail, so thin that you could see her bones, but her heart was filled with an exuberance that not even hunger could dull. Sable was awkward, with dark, deep-set eyes that sparkled with innocence and wonder. Despite being born a boy, Sable always knew she was different. Inside her lived a girl, bright and effervescent, waiting to bloom.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
The Park of Secrets.
In the year 2060, near the heart of Florida, just a stone's throw from Disney World, stood a theme park unlike any other, a place known as the House of Secrets. It was a magical park, much like a state fair, filled with towering rides, carnival games, and parades that drew people from all over the world. But among the grand Ferris wheel and the colorful day parade, there was one attraction that outshined them all, the Parade Princess, a mesmerizing mermaid named Kenya. Kenya was a sight to behold. At 22 years old, fresh out of college, she had the kind of beauty that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her brown skin glowed under the park lights, her hair a stunning mix of purple and pink that cascaded over her shoulders. Little pink hearts adorned her cheeks, and a ribbon of color stretched across her nose. But it wasn't just her beauty that made her special. Her eyes, big and almond-shaped, seemed to capture the hearts of everyone who saw.
Discover the magic of the Park of Secrets. Step into a world of wonder with the Park of Secrets, a heartwarming tale by Ariel Williams that will captivate your imagination. This enchanting story is now available exclusively on Lulu Books.
The Future, Daughters of Liberty, A New Dawn. In 2040, the United States was a fractured nation, still reeling from the fallout of Project 2025, the catastrophic policy that had allowed a resurgence of systemic oppression. The Deep South had seceded once more, forming the antebellum republic. where human trafficking, racial inequality, and gender oppression became tragically normalized. The Second Civil War erupted as the rest of the nation sought to free those trapped in this dystopian regime. After years of bloodshed, Kamala Harris had finally led the Union to victory, restoring a fragile sense of hope. But the battle scars ran deep, especially in places like Louisiana, where the remnants of a broken society still lingered.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
A Dying Planet, The Last Harvest.
In the year 2060, Earth is a shadow of its former self, choked by pollution, endless concrete, and abandoned by nature. Only a small fishing village by the sea has managed to preserve the planet's last untouched forest. In this dying world, June and Win, two young girls and the last children in their village, cling to the remnants of hope and innocence. Win roams the forest, collecting the season's last harvest, while June sings songs that echo with a haunting beauty through the village.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.